BionicDance is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Hello and welcome to Esoteric Studies. Today I'm going to be talking about something that has been kind of annoying me. It's been annoying me for a reason that I've seen there's been this push, well it has been for a while now, but this idea that atheism is the most intelligent choice in terms of how our universe was created and in terms of using a scientific thought process in order to determine the best possible outcome for the existence of our universe.
Oh goodness, where to even begin with this? Well, let's start by saying that atheism, in this specific context, is not a methodology, it's a conclusion. As to the rest, let's do this. Greetings, fellow space travelers, BionicDance here. Today we're dealing with a fellow who goes by Esoteric Studies. Now, let's get the petty, childish stuff out of the way. He's got 0 subscribers and he misspelled intelligent in his video's title. That's just... well, the truth is, if he didn't sound so darn sincere, I'd almost suspect that this video is satire.
Now, I just want to say just a quick disclaimer. I'm not trying to, in a sense, condone, bringing the atheists down or whatever. I have friends that are atheists and I've spoken to them about this. They're very arrogant in their outcome.
Now that's awfully ironic given how most theists talk about their beliefs. We're told that not only do they have the definitive answer, but if we don't have it too, based on nothing we can verify, based purely on faith, then we will be punished for that absence of blind belief. But it's the people who say that we ought to study the nature of the universe through empirical and logical means, because right now we don't have enough information for a definitive conclusion, just an idea with which we have a reasonable amount of confidence. Those are the arrogant ones. That's about as backward as it's possible to get without going Amish.
So anyway, let's get into this. So, firstly, you've got basically atheists saying that atheism is the more logical choice. It's the more smarter explanation for how the universe began.
Okay, dude, seriously. More smarter? Come on. But no, atheists aren't necessarily saying that it's the more intelligent choice. All we're saying, if we say anything at all, is that the religious stories we've heard don't hold water. See, atheism is non-belief, not a belief system unto itself. It's the failure of religion to make a coherent case which stands up to experimentation, which often results in somebody becoming an atheist, becoming a non-believer in unsupported mythology. Give us a religious choice that isn't faith-based. Give us a God which can be detected and verified, and you'll see atheists changing their minds rather quickly, however repugnant the idea may be. Or maybe not. Maybe the God we find won't be the repugnant asshole that the more popular religions describe. But we'll believe. Believe because we don't need faith to do it.
I think it's far more logical to believe that the universe came from something than nothing.
When are religious people gonna give this shit up? The only person I've ever heard claim that the universe came from nothing are theists in the name of atheists for us. I don't know one atheist who has ever said, first there was nothing, then suddenly poof. Not one. The issue we take with religion is the wildly unsupported claim that something magical happened, that some sort of divine sorcery made the universe exist. They have no evidence of this at all. Most of them say shit like they feel it in their heart or something similar, that they can't imagine a universe without a divine hand in its creation.
Problem is that people's conceptions of a god or creator are completely misinformed, or their ideas are completely based upon a sort of Christo-Judeo idea of God.
Those are the concepts that people tell us to believe. If even you think those are bullshit, can you really blame us for not being on board?
Look, I don't believe in that either, but I believe there's a creator. Now, I'm not completely summed up on what it is, whether it's just an energy, and if it's just a force, whether it's just some sort of being, whether you're in a matrix and there's a creator behind that and then another one behind that, or is... I mean, there's so many explanations. And atheists neglect them all for a kind of complete and utter, I would say, very religious mindset in materialism.
You knew it was going to happen eventually. You knew atheism was going to be called a religion at some point. But here's the thing. The material world is all we can study in any kind of objective manner. How else would you expect us to reach a conclusion we can verify? If you can give us something that we can test and peer review that isn't based in materialism, let us know. But until then, what are you suggesting? How do we reach any kind of logical, reasonable conclusion that isn't based in gut feelings and blind faith?
In this idea that it is purely material. This universe is 100% material, and that's that. We came from nothing, or we came from, an atom, it went into two atoms, and then bang. What the fuck? How did that happen?
It didn't. As best we can tell, the universe came from a singularity. That is, the entire universe was compressed down to something extremely tiny. All of the matter and energy were there, just super compressed. And that is what exploded, and as it cooled, became the universe we know today. If you're gonna criticize someone else's position, at least try to understand what they're saying first.
Oh, well, we can prove it. Yeah, I've seen the proof. I've seen this proof, right? It's like, I saw on one site, it was like, prove it. It was like fucking 30 pages long with a couple of random theories rammed together.
I'm sorry, did he just say that a paper describing something as complex as the origin of the universe was, at 30 pages, just too damn long? And its contents was just a bunch of randomness? What, is the just over half a page of the Bible any better? I mean, I know Skippy here says that he's not exactly on board with the Abrahamic religions either. I'm just trying to gauge how long he thinks a universe origin story ought to be.
Look, I'll tell you what, I could write a very convincing 30-page PDF for the proof of God. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's correct. I could knock out a couple theories for God existing as well. I think we'd have a lot of people going, But there's no proof. It's just set theories.
Okay, we're not going to get into the difference between hypothesis and theory, because I'm sick to death of that. But regardless, does anybody think he actually read that 30-page paper? See, one remarkable thing about science is the expected integrity of those who employ it. The expectation is that the data and methodology of study are supplied such that anybody who wants to can repeat the experiments, or expand upon them, in order to check for errors and find more information. So go ahead, write that 30-page paper on the existence of God. If you present the data necessary in order to peer review that paper, in order that someone might check your work, then you'll have engaged in the same level of integrity as a scientist. But otherwise, you're full of shit.
So tomorrow, there could be a whole new experiment, a whole new study that completely negate the past research in one area and shift into a whole new way of science. That could happen tomorrow. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it will ever happen. I'm just saying that's the reality of science. It's ever changing.
Yes, that's right. It is. And that's a good thing. Can you imagine if we just believed we have it right, full stop, and nothing will ever change our minds? You know, the way religion does. See, it's called learning. But humanity loves to demand certainty, needs to fill in the blanks. With bullshit if facts aren't available. Humankind hates an unknown. But I'd prefer an unknown, or more specifically, a let's find out, than something made up just to make me feel better. Yes, science is always changing, because we're improving. And Zippy here seems to think that's a bad thing.
And it's not flawed. I'm not saying science is flawed. Look, I use science all the time. I use logic all the time. But they are merely tools. And you're using the wrong tool to find your answer.
Okay then, Spanky, what would you suggest? He's gonna go off on a bunch of tangents right now, and I'm not sure he ever gets back to it.
Because if there is a creator, if there is a God, so to speak, I think that's a very flawed term, by the way. I don't believe in gods, because, like, look, the Greeks had many gods. There's gods everywhere. You know, if you understand, like, theology, you look at religion, I mean, there's gods for everything.
Okay, so there are bunches of religions with lots of different gods. How does that make it a flawed term? There are lots of different cultures with different expectations of behavior. Does that make courtesy and morality flawed terms too?
So many things come into play. And so, ironically, from you denying that there is something beyond actually makes you look unintelligent by default. By the same scientific process that these people employ to understand it. Because if you're to use logic, it's logically more fucking sane to believe that it came from something.
But logic, all by itself, isn't enough. I could logically prove that George Lucas is God. After all, he's a bearded man who created an entire galaxy, a father, a son, a ghost, a battle between good and evil. George Lucas is God. Except the available data allow us to reach the conclusion that this galaxy far, far away is fictional. I was able to logically prove it right up until someone checked my work. And that's the point. I don't want to believe. I want to know, and knowing requires data, and the data do not point to a god, no matter how much more logical the existence of such a creature may seem to you.
If you're to imagine there is a creator, or there is a god, then essentially a creator is separate from his creation. It doesn't mean that he isn't intertwined with, in a sense, everything, that he isn't some... I say he, that's stupid. I mean, it's he, it's she, it's sort of, there is no sex, it's both, it's whatever. But it may be intertwined with its connection. It may be some sort of energetic force that flows through all things. But it is separate from its creation. So if you imagine that the universe is contained within the infinite, or within whatever it is, then it means it's outside of the universe, which means it's outside of the space-time continuum, which means it's beyond the dualistic understanding of our universe, which really you then realize that logic is not the tool that is needed to crack the code of the universe, because logic is based upon opposites, it's based upon extremes. If you can't compare something to something else, its opposite, you can't use logic, because really it's based upon that principle.
This is some serious coffee shop philosophy right here. I mean, we're flying through with barely a rest the concept of God's gender versus pantheism, but a kind of pantheism that is separate from the universe while simultaneously flying through it, and that we can't use logic when trying to discover this God's existence. So apparently we're supposed to believe in some sort of creator without having not just any way of verifying its existence, but even detecting it, and without doing any sort of rational deduction. And somehow this is supposed to encourage us to believe a God is real. Yeah, sure. You just keep waiting for that to happen, Chester.
So, what I'm saying is, logic and science are the wrong tools. They're the wrong things needed in order to crack the code of the universe. You must use another tool. Now, what is this tool? That's a whole nother talk.
Now that's just bad form. If you're gonna tell people they're doing it wrong, you should at least give a hint what the right way is. And sure, you might tell us later, but this is like a bad season cliffhanger on a TV show we already don't like.
And secondly, when we actually look into science, and now we've got this, which I think is probably one of the most incredible discoveries of the 21st century, which is quantum physics. Now this is scientific, right? In that we now know that the universe is not material. The universe is conscious. I mean, people may not have come to that conclusion. That's how I see it.
Lots of people have seen lots of things lots of ways throughout humanity's history, and most of them have been wrong. I don't care how you see it. I care what you can show. This isn't some emotional, philosophical woo-woo matter here. This is empirical science. You say you've come to this conclusion about the nature of the universe. Okay, show your work.
Because if you can look at a certain direction and the actual experiment changes because of where the view is positioned and where his consciousness is essentially aimed, and the molecule, the atom moves. That means that the universe, these very small atoms and molecules, are intelligent to a level that they can perceive where you are looking and move to that very spot.
How is that a sign of intelligence? Reacting to stimulus does not require a conscious decision. In fact, if it happens every time we go looking, that implies an unconscious reaction far more.
Shit, that's some... Am I missing it here? Am I missing it? So, if the universe is conscious, if it's intelligent, then it's not material.
Every source of intelligence we've ever found requires a brain, which is material. If the universe is intelligent, and that's a pretty big if, then in all likelihood it is material. It has a brain somewhere.
So, when you don't buy into the idea of God, in quote marks, due to your Christian upbringing or whatever upbringing you've had, that means that I can't follow this. This is a load of bullshit. And look, I don't blame you, mate. But that's because you have a very limited understanding of God. If you want to know more about this, look into these other ancient cultures. Understand how they view God. To me, the scientific word for God is energy.
So what we have here is someone who's grafted God onto the physical world. Except apparently he hasn't, because God is outside the material world. Except God is energy, because energy can't just be energy. Now, there are some YouTube atheists, and I'm not naming any names, who would say that this is complete nonsense, that they don't even understand what he's trying to say. Me, I think I get what he's going for. I've watched and read enough sci-fi fantasy in my time to grok the tropes. He's just completely full of shit. I don't think he actually believes in a god. I think he needs a god, if you see the difference. Some people just can't handle a universe without a little magic in it.
So, when you use a scientific process to really debunk religion, and you really go at it from a critical eye, using logic, using these tools that you use within atheism, to try and discern what is true, or what is more of a metaphor, or what is more of a story, you can start to use that clever critical mind to break down what seemed like a myth, and to really conceptualize it and bring it into reality to help understand that it's far beyond what you could comprehend with the mind. So to try and grasp it with the mind, you're already losing. You're already lost.
Now how the hell do you know any of that? Beyond what you can comprehend with the mind? That's one hell of an assertion, especially since we're told God is energy, and we can study the fuck out of that. There are a lot of things humanity thought were beyond comprehension, right up until we figured it out. But when it comes to not knowing things, the one word that religious people seem to lose out of their vocabulary is yet.
So, really, you can't, I don't believe you will ever be able to prove the existence of God through science. I think, look, if you're a creator, maybe you'd want to make yourself unknown. Maybe you would never want to be able to be found out. And we think that, we're going to be able to do it. It's probably hilarious to him. It may be the impossible task.
And now we're back to God being a him again instead of just energy. Dude can't make up his mind. And apparently we've detected God through quantum physics, except maybe God doesn't want to be detected. This guy seems less and less like he actually believes in a God, and more like he's just engaging in a game of coming up with nifty ideas. Coffee shop philosophy, like I said. To be fair, I can't exactly fault him for it. I've done my fair share of it in my time. The main difference seems to be whether they stay nifty ideas, or if you start to build a worldview based on purely whether or not you like them, reality be damned.
And if there is nothing, what made the something? You can't say it was nothing, because it's fucking... Am I losing the plot here? Am I the stupid one? Maybe I am.
Well, I can't say about stupid, though I have my suspicions, but definitely ignorant. Hey, look on the bright side. You can't fix stupid. For ignorance, take 2 information pills and call me in the morning.
But look, listen to yourself. You can't say that nothing is something. That's illogical, it's unscientific.
And it's not what I'm saying. Again, as I said at the beginning of this video, the only people I know who make this came-from-nothing bullshit claim are theists making it on behalf of atheists. My position is that what religious people say is unsupported by any data, and therefore I reject it. And while I'm not particularly satisfied not knowing how the universe began, I'm certainly comfortable with the idea of withholding a conclusion until we have sufficient data to reach a proper one, instead of using a magical placeholder to help me sleep at night.
But to me, to completely negate the idea of a creator and then become an atheist and sort of reject any notion of anything and essentially believe that matter is the truth is not an intelligent outlook.
Oh, he's one of those. Dude, you need to learn what an atheist actually is. The single, solitary requirement, the only thing necessary to be an atheist is that the number of gods one believes in is 0. It doesn't matter why, it doesn't matter to what degree, it doesn't matter whether belief is provisionally withheld or if it's outright rejection. The only thing that makes an atheist is having no God belief. Most atheists I know will change their minds about the existence of a god just as soon as one's existence is shown using verifiable data. But most religions demand faith, which is the exact opposite. In essence, if a religion wants to recruit non-believers, it's its own worst enemy.
In fact, I don't believe it's intelligent to pick any side, whether you are religious or atheist. It is far more intelligent to be agnostic. Far more intelligent.
Agnostic is not the undecided camp you want it to be. That's a colloquial definition that's both etymologically incorrect and which does not accurately represent reality. Agnostic is best used as an adjective. I'm an atheist because I'm agnostic. Gnosis means knowledge, not commitment or decision. I lack sufficient knowledge of a god's existence, therefore I believe in none. I'm an agnostic atheist.
You know, if you, my rule is, and this is my rule, I'm not saying this is right, but if you can't sum up something, really, in less than 2 sentences, I would want to say a sentence. If you couldn't sum it up in an overall one equation, right? You're chatting shit.
Says the guy who made a 19-minute video on this topic.
Right? I know some things are complex. They take a little bit more time. You might need to get the whole blackboard out and define it. But until you can't E equals MC square it, you know, 0 equals nothing over 2 over brackets to the Q. You're chatting crap. I don't care how big your evidence is for it. I don't care how many books you've read. It really means nothing. If you can't sum it up in a very short time, then you're chatting shit.
Religions can't prove it. I don't believe it. Short enough for you, pal.
But the problem is, atheists are so hell-bent in their idea that science is the answer. But yet, you haven't given me a scientific proof yet.
Well, let's put it to the test. How many times has science proved the existence of something? Now, how many times has religion managed it? I think you'll have to pardon me for deciding that science is the way to go, given its track record.
But to say that somehow you're the smartest over the agnostic and the theist? Yo, my man, you need to be putting down your crack pipe.
I want to know where this joker's getting his info, because his idea of atheist sounds like he's been getting all of his information from religious people. Hey Wilbur, how about you come talk to us for a change, find out what we really think. Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic, instead please think.
Even YouTubers need Ferraris. Please donate on Patreon.